In Lesson 4.8, we're going to solve inequalities by adding or subtracting. So when we did solving equations, we talked about these two properties, the addition property and the subtraction property. So we're going to revisit these same topics here and just use them to solve inequalities. So the addition property of inequality means that you can add the same value to each side of an inequality. So if I had 7 is greater than 3 and I added 4 to the 7, I also need to add 4 to the 3. And if I have 1 is less than 3, if I added a 4 to the 3, I need to add a 4 to the 1. Just whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. And the same works for variables. They added c on the b side, so I have to add c on the a side, and same here. Subtraction is just the opposite. You can subtract the same value from each side. So if you start with 9 is greater than 6, if you subtract 3 from the 9, you also need to subtract 3 from the 6. If you take 4 away from 20, you also need to take 4 away from 15. And the same is true with the c's for variables. So now let's try these skills. We're going to solve inequalities by adding. So here's our inequality. Q minus 2 is greater than or equal to negative 6. And they want us to graph our solution on this number line. So if you have Q minus 2, or Q subtracted by 2, remember to solve equations, and the same is true for inequalities, you want to do the opposite of what you see. So the opposite of subtracting 2 is adding 2. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So I'm going to add 2 to each side. Minus 2 and plus 2 cross out, and I just get Q is greater than or equal to negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. So now I'm going to graph this on a number line. I'm going to put a dot at negative 4, and I'm going to close it in because I have a line underneath my inequality symbol. Okay, now this says Q is greater than negative 4, and the numbers that are greater than negative 4 are to the right. So there's your first example. So pause the video and fill all this in before moving on to the next part. Okay, in the quick check here, you're going to solve this inequality. Remember to solve inequalities by doing the opposite of what you see. Since that says y subtracted by 3 is less than 4, you want to do the opposite of subtract 3 to get the y all by itself. And then graph your solution on the number line. So pause the video, try that quick check, and when you're ready, move on to the next page. Now we're going to try solving inequalities by subtracting. So here's our inequality. We have d plus 9 is less than 8. So because I'm trying to get the d by itself, I have to do the opposite of plus 9. And the opposite of plus 9 is minus 9. And whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other side. So I'm going to subtract 9 from each side. Again, adding 9 and subtracting 9 are going to cancel out, and that's why we do it. Now we're just left with the d, and 8 minus 9 is negative 1. So d is less than negative 1. Now to graph this, I'm going to put an open circle at negative 1 because there's no line underneath, and d is less than negative 1 is all the numbers to the left. Now let's try a word problem. The drama club can spend no more than $120 for costumes. They already spent $79. How much more can they spend for costumes? So the amount spent already is $79, it's right here, plus the amount spent on costumes, which we don't know, so they're telling us to use C for that. At most, now, at most is actually opposite than what you think. It's actually less than or equal to. And if it said at least, that would be greater than or equal to. So with inequalities, the words are actually opposite than what you think. So at most means I can't have any more than $120, so it has to be less than or equal to 120. Now to solve this, to undo adding 79, I'm going to subtract 79 from both sides. 79 minus 79 is 0, so that goes away. And I get C is less than, borrow, 10 minus 9 is 1, 0, 11 minus 7 is 4. So C is less than or equal to 41. They can spend at most $41. Okay, so pause the video and fill that in before moving on to the next part. Now in this quick check, for quick check 2, A, B, and C, you're going to solve each inequality by, it looks like all of those have added numbers to the variable, so you're going to subtract on each of these and graph your solution on a number line. In quick check 3, you need more than 200 points on a two-part test. You score 109 points on the first part. How many more points do you need? So figure that out, and we'll check your work in class.